not, I want to say to the people that are watching us live on the internet, good morning, and as usual, it is good to stand before you. And we're going to get on with this lesson, sisters and brothers. Do not pull one of these late things on me which rank my spirit. I need to find, but I ain't got time. Nap know how much I hate late. But this is a lesson, sisters and brothers, that I put together years ago. It used to be this great big hoopla over the 400 years of captivity here in America. Muslims used to holler about it, and the Israelites used to holler about it. We even had people running around saying it was going to be over. I think it was 79 or was it 69? 79. Like Hoover's daddy. So I knew Hoover when he was like this, believe it or not. His daddy used to be walking around in Washington Park with a big sign, in the time 79. In other words, we was all supposed to go back to Israel. And it was supposed to be over at that time. But I always knew better. Even it took me some time, years, that's after I left Brother Stern, to even show him that 400 years was not talking about here in America. In fact, you get most Israelites and Muslims during that time, in the 60s and 70s, when they thought about captivity, they only talked in the area where, right here in United States of America. And I always say, well, what about the other places? Nobody want to hear that. So years ago, I decided I'm going to put an end to this thing, especially among the people that the Lord has put in front of me, to show that the 400 years of captivity is not now. It's later. In fact, I titled it, The 400 Years of Captivity. Is it now or in the past? The 400 years of captivity, is it now or in the past? You see, nobody talks about this except they want to talk on it. We're going to do this here and we're going to do that. You're not going to do anything until, I'm going to show you, until Jesus returns, sisters and brothers. Most people don't associate the return of Israel with Jesus, the Messiah. But the whole thing is, he is the one that's going to put it all together. He had it all written. You will not. It's Israel, my Israelite brothers, all of them want to run away from Jesus. But I'm going to tell you something. You will not go anywhere without it.
That's right.
But I tell you one thing. You will end up in the wilderness sooner or later. Just like all Israel left Egypt and ended up in the wilderness, you will end up in there sooner or later. And if you kick against him, you will not get into the land. These things, sisters and brothers, we need to know about. It is rough to be kicked for all of these years and in all of these countries and get into the wilderness, and you can look across the Jordan and can't make it. In other words, you're going to be like Moses was. But the difference is, you ain't going to have Moses' status. But we're going to look at this. See, the problem with us is that we don't deal with dates. We don't deal with research. We don't deal with history. How is it that you're going to have any kind of solid information and you don't go and deal with history? You don't deal with dates. You don't do no research. Like a brother in the park asked me one time, how do you know that you are right? I said, research.
Right.
And that's the way it has to be. And we're going to have a look at this because we're going to read what the Lord said concerning Abraham and his seed. And we're going to dissect this a little at a time. So we're going to start in Genesis, the 15th chapter. Because look like to us, to research something is almost an abomination. Remember a guy told me one time when I was in a restaurant. And he had seen one of my programs. He told me, well, I've been called to the ministry too, and saying I got a problem. See, if you have to have notes to preach, you don't feel the spirit. I said, this boy is so brain dead, I wouldn't even answer. I just looked at him and kept eating my grits and eggs. That is our problem. I don't care what you do, sisters and brothers. You have to learn how it is done. I don't care where you go. You have to learn the direction there. It is all that simple. Now, this is what the Lord told Abraham. When you look at what the Lord said to Abraham, all you have to do is pay attention. Then you would have known something is not right, because it is impossible. See, what's happening is, when 79 went, it was the day before that, but somebody dropped the ball. And 79 came and went. Now, everybody just kind of like, stop talking about it. Now you want to go spiritual. But it was a big hoopla. I mean, a big hoopla. Muslims used to talk it too, but what people don't understand is the one that started the black Muslim was an Israelite first. That's why the teaching was the same. Mm-hmm. Teaching was the same. But being that those of us that was on the ground floor, we know that. I know their teaching just as well as they do. You know why? Because it's our old teaching. So when I sanitize Israel, that sanitizes everything else. Now we're going to start this 15:1. Genesis the 15th chapter and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward.
Go ahead.
And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus.
Now that's what Abraham wanted to know before his name was called Abraham. It was Abram. He said, what you going to give me? I ain't got no child. I got some servant in my house going to inherit what I have. Mm-hmm. But the Lord told him something. Go ahead and read.
And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed. And lo, one born in my house is mine heir.
So I got a stranger. Not even, don't have nothing to do with me. He going to inherit my house just by reason of the fact he is here. Go ahead and read.
And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir.
Go ahead.
But he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven.
Go ahead.
And tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be.
He said, No, this Eleazar is not going to be your heir. One that's going to be born to you is going to be your heir. And he said, I want you to look at the stars of heaven. So that's how your seed's going to be. And Abraham got a lot of physical children, too. I'm talking about that came out of him. I mean, a whole lot. But then spiritual side, he ended up with the title of Father of the Faithful. But here he is talking about the physical. Whole lot of people came out of Abraham. Go ahead and read.
6. And he believed in the Lord. And he counted it to him for righteousness.
So Abraham believed him, so it counted him to righteousness. Because Abraham was not only father of Israel, Abraham is the father of the people that call themselves us. Abraham is the father of the Arabs. Abraham is the father of a whole lot of people. Midianites, a whole lot of them. But he said, look, he believed God, so God counted to him for righteousness. Go ahead and read.
And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it.
Go ahead.
And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it?
Now, he wanted to know, he wanted to sign that he's going to inherit it. So the Lord did some things, and then he put Abraham to sleep, and he showed it to him. Skip now to verse 12. Verse 12, and go ahead.
And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. And lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him.
Go ahead.
And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
Now, so this is what his 400 years of captivity and affliction and slavery come from, that was taught in the 60s and 70s, and some people are still teaching it, even though 79 is gone. But I'm going to show you a whole lot of dates that passed before and the 400 years was gone. But this is what they read. First thing he say, I want you to know for sure that your seed's going to be in a strange land, and they are going to be afflicted for 400 years. That's a long time, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 29. Verse 29, and go ahead.
29.
I'm sorry. Let's keep reading.
Mm-hmm. And also,
I'm ahead of myself. Go ahead.
And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge.
See, we're going to come back and we're going to break this down verse by verse. Because he's saying something here that nobody paid no attention to. He said also, that nation that do this to my people, they're going to be judged. Go ahead and read.
And afterwards shall they come out with great substance.
Uh-huh.
And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace.
Go ahead.
Thou shalt be buried in a good old age.
Uh-huh.
But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again.
He said, but in the fourth generation they shall come hither again. Nobody paid no attention to certain things. And we're going to break this down and look at a lot of these little things that nobody paid attention to. Because we have a bad problem of always reading a verse and you want to tell us what else the Lord said without reading it. Now let's go into Exodus the 12th chapter. Exodus the 12th chapter. Because I say, if it's worth learning, sisters and brothers, it's worth learning it right. It's just like if I was going to do wrong, like I said to the brothers that still want to get the lamb and eat the lamb and cook them for Passover. You're going to go to a store and buy you some lamb. You can't do that. That lamb has to be raised. First thing you get is mother. Then his mother has to have the firstborn, a male. Once that, then this male have got to be examined, can't have a blemish on it. Then you got to put it up on the 10th day of the month Abib and kill it on the 4th. Well, if you don't do it like that, then you can't do it right. If I decide to do wrong, I'm going to do wrong perfectly. Because I'm going to research the wrong. Exodus 12 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying,
Uh-huh.
This month shall be unto you the beginning of months.
Now that's why our months don't start like when the Gentiles' month. Because the Lord set his month at his time. I don't care whatever it is that everybody else said. That's why when you look at our calendars, the year starts different. He said, this is the beginning of months. Go ahead and read.
It shall be the first month of the year to you.
Uh-huh.
Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And
now, we're not going to deal with it. I'm just letting you know that there's a time for you to do everything. But skip down to verse 6 and go ahead.
And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month.
Uh-huh.
And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
Go ahead.
And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it.
Now, you can't even kill it too soon. You can't put it up too soon. You have to put it up on the 10th day of that month. Then you have to kill it on the 14th when the sun go down. Everything has to be done perfect. Then you take the blood and you put it over your doorpost. Skip down to verse 11 and go ahead.
And thus shall you eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand.
Go ahead.
And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover.
Because it's the Lord's Passover. He's getting ready to show you how that your shortcomings can be passed over and you can be saved alive. This lamb represents Jesus, sister and brother. That's why I said Israelites more than anybody else should recognize Jesus when he came along. Go ahead and read.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
Both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment.
Go ahead.
I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are.
Go ahead.
And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt.
So that's when the Lord instituted you are saved by your faith. He said, I want you to do this. When you get this lamb, I want you to put that blood over your doorpost. He didn't say when I come through and see the Israelite, are the righteous, are the clean. He said, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Because the blood of the Passover is just like the circumcision, a token of your faith in God. I believe you, God, so I'm going to do exactly what you say. Skip down to verse 29. Verse 29, and go ahead.
And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
From the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon. And all the firstborn of cattle.
That lets you know the Lord don't cut, he don't split no hairs. Everybody go when the wagon comes. That's one thing about trying to have money. You can't buy your way out of death. Go ahead and read.
And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt.
Go ahead.
There was not a house where there was not one dead.
That had to be a big cry over that. I mean, dead people was everywhere. Go ahead and read.
And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said.
Now, that's a big thing to get him now, but he said, get on out. I'm going to get you and all your people, and I want you to serve the Lord as you have said. Go ahead and read.
Also, take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also.
So Pharaoh had finally come to the conclusion that Moses' God was God. So he said, now take your flocks and your herd. See, it put restrictions on Moses, but after a while, he said, take everything. And by the way, pray for me too. Go ahead and read.
And the Egyptians were urging upon the people that they might send them out in the land in haste. So they said, we be all dead men.
So, and this is going to happen, sisters and brothers. That's why I know when the Lord get ready to take Israel back, ain't going to be none left nowhere. Because ain't nobody going to let you be there. I can show you where people going to come and get you. And deliver you up. Well, I know we're going to be kicking and scratching, but the Lord have made allowance for your ignorance. This is the one time you're going to be delivered in spite of yourself. To the wilderness. But whether you get out of the wilderness or not, it's going to be according to your faith.
That's right.
But we need to understand this, sisters and brothers.
That's right.
Skip down to verse 40. Verse 40. And go ahead.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelled in Egypt was 430 years.
Now see, this is a point where brothers used to say, well, you didn't say that ain't 4, that's 430. But look, it didn't get to 500. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm going to show you that this is talking about this time. So 430 years, that's how long they was down in Egypt. That's what sojourning means. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self-same day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
I mean, all the hosts. Not one person was left. I mean, not one. And the Lord delivered the people out of Egypt. Now let's go into Psalms and Genesis, rather. The 15th chapter, because we're going to break this down verse by verse. But I want you to keep a marker here in the, when you get to 15th chapter, I want you to keep a marker there. Because we're going to break this down, sisters and brothers. That's why I like to do stuff so you won't have, well, you know, he left this undone. No, we ain't going to leave nothing undone. That's why I tell people all the time, if you're going to invite somebody here, be sure you tell them to bring pen, paper, and patience. And bring your own Bible. So this stuff you be reading, you know it is in the Bible. Because some people came, I've seen them kind of look at the Bible. No, it's the same one. So we're going to examine what God said to Abraham. And we're going to see if this has been fulfilled or is this still in the future. Back to Genesis the 15th chapter. Because sisters and brothers, the Lord have told you out of the mouth of 2 or more witnesses is a fact established. And if you're going to deal with God, and you're going to deal with salvation, and your eternal salvation or death is on the line, I think it would behoove you to find out about the facts and not what somebody believes. I say it all the time. I got so mad I believed that I could whoop a whole school until the fight was over. Reality trumps belief every time. Next time I'm on wrong. Genesis 15, and we're going to read one verse and we're going to break it down. Verse 13, 15 and 13. Okay, read it.
And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
Now he said that they're going to be a stranger in the land that's not theirs. He's going to serve them, and they're going to afflict them 400 years. Put your marker here. And let's go into the 105th chapter of Psalms. Psalms 105. Because that's why our TV program, we call them all over the country, the Bible speaks. Because we let the Bible talk. The Lord can speak for himself better than I can. Because he don't have no memory loss. My memory lapses in a minute. That's why I said tell the truth. Because memory's too bad to lie. 105, and we're going to start reading at verse 23. Psalm 105, we're going to start reading at verse 23. 105 and 23. Okay, read it.
Israel also came into Egypt and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
Now, Israel and Jacob, they're the same one, sisters and brothers. The Lord say something like, talk like that sometimes to let you know he's not talking about two different groups of people. Jacob's name was, Israel's name was Jacob before God changed it. So Israel came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham. Go ahead and read, because Egypt, this is a big secret too. People look at Egypt, and they see the Arabs over there, the sons of Ishmael, and they don't realize that Egypt is on the African continent. That is the land of Ham, sisters and brothers.
That's right.
And all of the Egyptians, all the artifacts, everything, don't look like the people that's occupied it now. Why? Because they are not the original occupants. We had a time and day and who and when Egypt was taken over. But don't nobody bother to research. So he sojourned in the land of Ham. All of Ham's children are black, sisters and brothers. Go ahead and read.
24. And he increased his people greatly and made them stronger than their enemies.
Go ahead.
He turned their heart to hate his people, to deal subtly with his servants. He sent Moses his servant and Aaron whom he had chosen.
Go ahead.
They showed his signs among them and wonders in the land of Ham.
Now, so he took Moses and Aaron down there, and that's where the signs with Moses turned the blood red and brought in the flies and the frogs, and he eventually killed the firstborn. And he did all his wonders in the land of Ham. Go ahead and read, because Egypt is Ham's second oldest son. Go ahead.
He sent darkness and made it dark. And they rebelled not against his word.
Go ahead.
He turned their waters into blood and slew their fish. The land brought forth frogs in abundance.
He did a whole lot of stuff to these people, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 38 and go ahead.
Egypt was glad when they departed, for the fear of them fell upon them.
Yeah, because the Lord had worked them over. Go ahead and read.
He spread a cloud for a covering and fire to give light in the land.
Skip down to verse 42 and go ahead. See, this is why I know people, sisters and brothers, when that's why Israel don't get returned until Jesus comes. And when Jesus said, bring my children home, they're going to be glad to bring you home. It's all that simple. But don't nobody think that means anything, because the wrong person is telling your story. He's telling his story. Think about it. But my story and our story is the world's story, and you're going to find that out. Verse 42, go ahead.
For he remembered his holy promise and Abraham his servant.
Go ahead.
And he brought forth his people with joy and his chosen with gladness. And gave them the lands of the heathen, and they inherited the labor of the people.
Now, so he remembered what he had promised Abraham. And he brought the people out and gave them the land of Egypt. Why? Egypt was the one that they were sojourning in, which is the land of Ham, sister and brother. And it's telling you here, he brought the people out of the land of Ham, because he had promised Abraham he was going to bring them out. Now let's go back to Genesis, the 14th chapter. Might seem redundant sometimes, but it's good sometimes to read the same thing a couple of times so you will understand it. Back to Genesis 15, rather. Genesis, the 15th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 14. Genesis 15 and verse 14. Okay, read it.
And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterward shall they come out with great substance.
He said, now, also that nation. He didn't say those nations, sisters and brothers. He pointed out one nation that I'm going to judge. And once they come out, I bring them, they're going to come out with great substance. In other words, the Lord made the Egyptians give Israel gold and all. He should have kept the gold and earrings. They wouldn't have made that calf when they got into the wilderness. But still, he gave it to them. First, go ahead and read.
And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, and thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again.
Now we're going to stop it right here. Just like the preachers like to do. We're going to read a half a verse. But the only difference is I ain't going to interpret it. I'm going to let the Bible deal with it. Okay? He says, so now in the fourth generation they're going to come hither. Fourth generation from who? From Abraham, sister and brother.
That's right.
Now let's have something. We're going to go and do a little investigating here. Keep your marker here. Let's go into Matthew, the first chapter. Matthew, the first chapter. Sometime, all you got to do is read, but that was one of Israel's problems. In the early days, Israelites used to teach that the New Testament was the devil's book. I tell you, we was messed up. I ain't going to lie, I ain't never been messed up. They was messed up. Because I was brought in under a good teacher. But we had so many things wrong. But still, the Lord took me to the right one. Because he knew I was just like a sponge. I'd have sucked it up. I'd have sucked up garbage too. Because I was looking for something. And when you're looking for something, the Lord says, seek and you shall find it. And he sent me exactly where I need to be. Now we're going to do a lineage here. Matthew, the 1st chapter. And we're going to read verse 1. 1 and 1. Read it.
The book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham.
You notice how it took him all the way back to let you know this lineage coming through? Mm-hmm. The book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. You know, there's a whole lot of fathers and sons in between. But skip down to verse 17. Verse 17. And read it.
So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations.
Now that would stop it right there, wouldn't it?
That's right.
He said from Abraham told Abraham in the 4th generation, that is from you, Abraham, they shall return. But right now, from Abraham to David is 14 generations. Go ahead and read. And
from David into the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations.
And from David, when the last king was taken down, that's by Nebuchadnezzar, was 14 generations. Go ahead and read.
And from the carrying away into Babylon into Christ are 14 generations.
Sisters and brothers, that is 42 generations.
That's right.
If somebody just merely read this, you would have known that, look here, God must be talking about another time.
That's right.
Serving 400 years somewhere else. Could not be in America. 42 generations from Abraham to Jesus, sisters and brothers. So it let us know that we have to go and investigate a little further. Because when you want to kill a misconception, you should kill it to the ground. Leave nothing to be wondered at. So let's go back. You should have your marker there. Genesis the 15th chapter. I mean, we're going to kill it to the ground, sisters and brothers. Yes, and we're going to show you that the Lord is going to take his people back. But then, we don't recognize that. Because if you don't recognize Jesus, you have a problem. I think that's one of the biggest things that other people have when they come. Oh, this is a Hebrew Israelite class. They come in and we talking Jesus. You ain't supposed to be talking Jesus. Why not? I heard a brother tell me years ago at this church down with a bunch of us, what you call co-religion mingling. Brother going to get up and tell the Israelite we don't know Jesus. I picked Jesus up in Genesis and walk him to the 1st chapter of Luke and set him on David's throne. Mm-hmm. No, Jesus. He's my high priest and my future king. How you going to tell me I don't know my future king? Genesis 15 and what we said at the last half of verse 16. Genesis 15 and the last half of verse 16. Read it.
For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full.
So he had something going on here. He said, look, I'm going to bring them in the 4th generation because I have some people that have a time to commit, finish they sinning. That's what the iniquity of the Amorites are not yet fulfilled. That's why the Lord have time, like this is called the times of the Gentiles, sister and brother. The Lord has given this Gentile time, and he ruled the whole world. Who are the Gentiles? The one we call European and white folks. Why is it that they don't rule? Well, they don't rule China. China's a Gentile too. He come out of J5. Well, Russia, Gentile too. Have you noticed they're all on the same continent? All Gentiles, sisters and brothers. That's their time to rule. And can't nobody break it. Hamlin had his time. Start with Nimrod. Then you had the Assyrian. Look at the great thing of Syrian. And then Egypt, all these. But they didn't have their time. Israel, Shem with Israel. And Elam had their time. Now start with Nebuchadnezzar. The Gentiles' time has started. And he's going to rule it every day. And if you get mad and you're going to try to overthrow him, you're going to end up as fertilizer. It's all that simple. It's good to know the logistics, sisters and brothers. If you know the logistics, then you won't end up somewhere you never intended to go. So he says, so now, he's going to let him stay there. He's going to come in the 4th generation, your people are, because the Amorites have some iniquity to fulfill. In other words, they ain't through all the time. See, the Lord give you a certain time to get this thing together. even when he said when he take the people back, he going to restore long life again. Then he said a child is going to die at 100 years old, and a sinner is going to be accursed at 100. You're going to have some time to get it together. And if you don't make it in your time, God don't give no second chance, sister and brother. He give you a whole lot of chances. He said this is the beginning of the trip, and that's the end. You might fall 50 times. But if you keep getting up and you make that trip, well, the Lord gave me 50 chances. He didn't give you 50 chances. He gave you one chance. You made the best of it by getting up. This is the whole thing. You have to understand, sisters and brothers. That's right. So now, let's go and see when Israel got it, the last act that Moses them did. What was the first people that Israel knocked off when they got ready to go into the promised land? Let's go into Numbers. Keep your marker here now, because we're going to be back. Let's go into Numbers, the 21st chapter. Numbers, the 21st chapter. Because the Lord told you in Ecclesiastes, the 19th chapter, he says, long as you are living, there is hope. Long as you breathing, there's a chance that you can get salvation. I don't care what you've done, how ugly you've been, and to whom you've been ugly to. Have you ever changed your mind and decided to do this thing right? This is a gracious God we're dealing with. Looking for reason to forgive you. He's not looking for reason to condemn. He's looking for reason to save you. Give me a reason. Give me something that I can use to save you back. And then he tell you what he wants you to give him. We're going to start at verse 10. Numbers 21 and verse 10. Okay, go ahead.
And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in Oboth. And they journeyed from Oboth and pitched in IOG.
Now, all this is the traveling in the wilderness now, after they came out of Egypt. Remember, they came out of Egypt. Go ahead and read.
In the wilderness, which is before Moab, toward the sunrise.
Go ahead.
From thence they removed and pitched in the valley of Zered. And from thence they removed and pitched on the other side of Arnon, which is in the wilderness that cometh out of the coast of the Amorites.
Go ahead.
For Arnon is the border of Moab, and between Moab and the Amorites.
Now we have lessons that show you this wilderness and how they travel around in the wilderness for 40 years. But now the Lord is getting ready to give them some land. Give them, let's see who he's going to take it from first. Skip down to verse 21. Verse 21. And go ahead.
And Israel sent messengers unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, Let me pass through thy land. We will not turn into thy fields or into the vineyards. We will not drink of the waters of the well. But we will go along by the king's highway until we be past thy borders.
So they just sent a message there. Said, look, we ain't going to drink your water. We ain't going to eat out of your field. We just want to pass by the king's highway. But the Lord had fixed the Amorites because their time of iniquity had come to an end. So what did the Amorites do? Go ahead and read.
And Sihon would not suffer Israel to pass through his border. But Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel into the wilderness. And he came to Jahaz and fought against Israel.
So now he couldn't wait till they got there. He went out and attacked them. But what happened? Go ahead and read.
And Israel smote him with the edge of the sword, and possessed his land from Arnon unto Jabbok.
Go ahead.
Even unto the children of Ammon. For the border of the children of Ammon was strong.
So now he smote him and took down everything he had. Go ahead and read.
And Israel took all these cities. And Israel dwelt in the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and all the villages thereof.
Now why is it that they was going to take this city, and why is it that the Amorites couldn't let them pass on in peace? Because the Lord had already told Abraham, your seed, after this 400 years, are going to take over the Amorites' land. But he can't let them have it now, because the Amorites still got some time to try to clean their act up. They failed. Israel took the land. And the Lord was talking to Israel about it when he got mad at Israel when getting ready to disperse us. Let's go into Amos, the 2nd chapter. Because he always backs everything up, sisters and brothers. Amos, the 2nd chapter. That's why we know what's going on. Everybody watching Europe, we're looking at Western Europe too. We know what's going on. We're looking at it from a different standpoint. And well, you know, Greek going to fall out in Greece. Well, the Greeks fall out or not, Greece is a part of the 10, and they're going to be a part of the 10. We know what's going on. They got stuff to fulfill. You know, when the Soviet Union went down, well, okay, the Russian, the Cold War is over, and but one superpower left, and that's America. First thing I asked is, what happened to all them weapons that Russia had that they could destroy the world 30 times with? Who got them? All of a sudden, Russia ain't hungry no more, are they?
That's right.
They flexing their muscle now. You'd be surprised. Amos 2, and the Lord's talking to Israel here. Verse 6, go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Israel, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof. Because they sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes.
Now, you know, you get over here, people tell you, you know, we so wicked because this white man and did. Look here, we was wicked before we even run into the white man. And I want y'all to understand that. I can read where Israel taught the wicked one their ways.
That's right.
Somebody was geared to watch you because you're the priest, and instead of you teaching them priestly stuff, they watch you do evil stuff. And now they're using it on you. Mm-hmm. He said, I will not forget what you did because you sold the poor for silver and you sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. We was really raunchy.
That's right.
Skip down to verse 9. Verse 9 and go ahead.
Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them.
And now we read about them, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Yet I destroyed the Amorite before them. Go ahead and read.
Whose height was like the height of the cedar.
Go ahead.
And he was strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit from above and his roots from beneath.
He's I destroyed him. I did. Go ahead and read.
Also I brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you 40 years through the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorite.
Didn't he tell Abraham that, look, they're going to sojourn in this land for 400 years. But they're going to come in the 4th generation because the Amorites still have some iniquity to fulfill. So this thing was set. The Lord had already set this thing. He knew that these people wasn't going to get it right because he could tell by their behavior. So he told Israel, I'm going to take you and I am going to give you their land. That's after 400 years was up. Now then we're going to look at the Apostle Stephen before they killed him. While he was making his case, he brought this same thing out about the 400 years. Let's go into Acts, the 7th chapter. That's why I say if we had did a little investigating, we wouldn't been walking around here talking about 4 years. Who was Daddy Canaan? Wouldn't been walking around in Washington Park with the sign. I can see him yesterday. But the whole thing is he was following what he was taught. Muslim on the hollering, screaming, 400 years. And I'm looking at this book. I said, something don't fit here. Something simply don't fit. And we're going to show you what don't fit.